Back in 2012, Robin van Persie was Arsenal. Let's be honest, that wasn't a team, it was a one-man army. The Gunners had signed him 8 years earlier, hoping he'd one day fill the enormous void left by legends like Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp. And that season, even with the team struggling, Van Persie made it seem like the achievements of those two icons weren't all that impressive after all. With 39 goal contributions in a single Premier League season, he outshone Bergkamp, who never managed more than 27. And Henry? Well, not only did Van Persie match his goal-scoring record, but let's just say this. If he hadn't been selfless enough to stop his run and let Henry score on his emotional return to Arsenal, that one extra goal would have allowed Van Persie to match Cristiano Ronaldo as the Premier League's all-time record goal scorer. But here's the thing. As incredible as he was on the pitch, it was his loyalty during 6 long, trophyless years that made him a hero to the Arsenal faithful. Just a year earlier, their captain, Cesc Fabregas, had grown so frustrated with the club's situation that he offered to pay out of his own pocket to leave. When Fabregas left, it was Van Persie who stepped up, taking the armband and vowing to the fans, "My heart is with Arsenal. I couldn't even picture myself in a different shirt." Well, we all know how this story ends. Less than 2 months after scoring his 30th goal of the season, Van Persie refused to renew his contract. A month later, he wasn't just gone. He had signed for their rivals, Manchester United. And if that wasn't enough, he famously declared, "The little boy inside me has always screamed for Man United." The fans were furious. They came after his family, burned his shirts, and made their anger known in every way possible. It was one of the most dramatic betrayals in football history. But what stunned the most was that it worked. Van Persie's move to Manchester United paid off massively, both for him and the club. However, I've always found it strange that people were so shocked by his actions. Why? Because for a player who oozed class with the ball at his feet, Van Persie has always been, well, a bit of a troublemaker. Even as a kid, he was going off the rails. He loves to tell the story of how he got kicked out of class so often that he became close friends with the school janitor. And here's the kicker. His family didn't seem to care much. Why? Because before he was even born, they visited a fortune teller who not only predicted they'd have a son, but also declared that he'd grow up to be a footballer and play for the Netherlands one day. So, when Van Persie's father noticed his son had talent, he pretty much let him do whatever he wanted, believing it was his destiny. And that lack of discipline had consequences. By the time Van Persie was 16, he was already recognized as one of the best young talents in the country. But his attitude got him expelled from his club's academy. One of his coaches famously said, "He did nothing he was told and everything he wanted." They were so fed up with his behavior that they'd rather not have him in the team at all. In fact, Manchester United's chief scout at the time had already been keeping an eye on him. But the stories about his behavior scared them off. Despite this, Feyenoord took a chance on him. Even they were worried about his lack of maturity, but a series of injuries forced them to promote him to the first team much sooner than planned. And the result? Pure chaos, but also pure magic. Just 8 months later, at this point in his career, Robin van Persie had yet to score a single goal for Feyenoord. Yet, he was named Dutch Young Talent of the Year and had already won a European trophy. It sounds like a paradox, but back then, Van Persie was a traditional winger in a system that relied on 2 strikers. Scoring goals wasn't exactly his primary role, but when it came to everything else, dribbling, creating chances, and dictating play, he was a talent far beyond his years. Just look at Feyenoord's UEFA Cup run that season. Van Persie was named man of the match multiple times. He dominated both legs against Rangers, directly contributing to 3 goals. But his most impressive performance came in the semi-finals against Inter Milan, where he made their defense, featuring the legendary Ronaldo Fenomeno, look like Swiss cheese. If it weren't for Van Hooijdonk wasting a golden chance, Van Persie would have walked away with 2 assists. By now, it was clear. Van Persie wasn't just a talented youngster. He was a generational talent. Feyenoord recognized this and quickly tied him down to a professional contract. But just 3 matches into the next season, he had already managed to ruin everything. Here's what happened. Feyenoord was set to face Real Madrid in the European Super Cup, and Van Persie was obsessed with the idea of playing against Zinedine Zidane. It was all he could think about. But in the Champions League playoff match before the Super Cup, the coach told him to warm up and then left him on the bench. In Van Persie's mind, this meant he wouldn't get a chance to play in the Super Cup either. He completely lost it. While his teammates celebrated their victory, Van Persie stormed into the locker room, shouting in anger and throwing his boots on the ground. The coach, well aware of his bratty tendencies, decided to punish him by benching him repeatedly and even sending him to play with the reserves. But here's the thing about Van Persie. The moment he was given a full 90 minutes to play, he reminded everyone why he was so special. After being benched and sent to the reserves as punishment, Van Persie finally got his chance to prove himself. And prove himself he did, scoring an incredible 5 goals in a single match. Suddenly, Feyenoord couldn't justify keeping him on the sidelines. Before long, he had racked up 15 goals in just 12 matches, reminding everyone of his immense talent. But even as his performances on the pitch dazzled, his form remained as unpredictable as his temper. While some fans began to see him as the heir to Dennis Bergkamp, others couldn't stand him. He was frequently harassed in the streets, to the point where his father insisted he hire a bodyguard for protection. Feyenoord, tired of his antics, were eager to sell him, and Van Persie was equally desperate to leave. But there was a problem. Other clubs had caught on to his reputation as a troublemaker. No one wanted to take the risk, except for one man, Arsene Wenger. Wenger had been keeping an eye on Van Persie for some time, but he wasn't convinced the young Dutchman was ready for the Premier League. As Wenger put it, Van Persie wasn't prepared to play in extreme conditions. That all changed after one fateful reserve match. Feyenoord sent Van Persie to play with the reserves again, and this time he faced Ajax. The atmosphere was hostile. Ajax fans spat on him, threw objects, and hurled abuse throughout the match. Yet despite the chaos, Van Persie managed to score. This only enraged the Ajax fans further. In a shocking turn of events, they stormed the pitch and physically attacked him. It was a brutal moment, but it proved something to Wenger. Van Persie could handle extreme pressure. Whether out of pity or admiration for his resilience, Wenger finally decided to sign him. A new chapter at Arsenal. The plan was simple. With Bergkamp and Henry aging and Anelka already gone, Arsenal needed a new talisman. Wenger had transformed Thierry Henry from a winger into one of the deadliest strikers in the world, and he believed he could do the same with Van Persie. It was a gamble, but one Wenger was willing to take. Little did he know, Van Persie's journey at Arsenal would be filled with even more drama, brilliance, and heartbreak. What Wenger didn't realize was that molding Van Persie into a world-class player would be far more challenging than it had been with Thierry Henry. Right from his first season at Arsenal, Van Persie's immaturity became a glaring issue. The media didn't hold back. The Telegraph even went as far as writing, "His brain serves no use." If you're wondering what sparked such harsh criticism, here's what happened. During a match against Southampton, Van Persie was already on a yellow card. Wenger, well aware of his fiery temperament, comparing it to Mario Balotelli's, pulled him aside and warned, "Robin, be careful. Don't do anything stupid. Don't even make tackles." But just 5 minutes later, Van Persie lost the ball while attempting a risky dribble near the halfway line. In a moment of frustration, he launched into a reckless 2-footed tackle on a Southampton player. The referee didn't hesitate. Second yellow, red card. As Van Persie walked off the pitch, Wenger stood on the sidelines, looking utterly dumbfounded. While the incident was almost comical in its absurdity, things took a much darker turn that summer. Van Persie found himself in serious legal trouble, accused of a crime so severe that he spent several weeks in jail. The situation was so dire that he was placed in solitary confinement for his own protection. There were genuine concerns that he might face a lengthy prison sentence, prompting Arsenal to hastily sign Alexander Hleb, as a potential replacement. Fortunately for Van Persie, the case was eventually dismissed, and he returned to the club in time for preseason. But instead of laying low, he decided it was the perfect moment to approach Wenger and demand more playing time. As Van Persie recalled the moment Wenger looked him in the eyes and said, "You're still not a top player." When Van Persie asked why, Wenger replied, "No, I'm not telling you. You have to find out for yourself. Start asking the right questions. Look around. There are so many top players here, and you're not one of them. Why are you not a top player, Robin?" That conversation was a wake-up call. From that moment, Van Persie began paying attention. He studied Dennis Bergkamp, Thierry Henry, and Robert Pires, observing their movement, their decision-making, and how they read the game. He realized Wenger was right. He was far from where he needed to be. "That's where I want to go," he told himself. And it worked. By November, Van Persie was on fire, scoring 8 goals in 8 matches and earning the Premier League Player of the Month award. But just as he seemed to be hitting his stride, his other major issue resurfaced. His body. Van Persie was, as many described, made of glass. During a match, an opponent stepped on his foot and he broke his toe. Over the rest of the season, he suffered 3 ankle sprains and his form plummeted. By the time Arsenal reached the Champions League final, he had played just 8 minutes in the entire knockout stage. More drama on and off the pitch. As his 3rd season began, Van Persie's problematic side reared its head again. He lost control of his BMW, crashed it, and simply left the scene, hitching a ride to training as if nothing had happened. This was a criminal offense that could have landed him up to 6 months in jail. Thankfully, his excuse that he didn't know somehow worked, and he avoided serious consequences. Despite the off-field drama and 3 more injuries that season, Van Persie managed to outscore even Thierry Henry, finishing as Arsenal's top scorer. He even scored a stunning goal against Charlton that Wenger called the goal of a lifetime. With Henry leaving for Barcelona that summer, the stage was set for Van Persie to step up as Arsenal's new leader. And for a brief moment, it seemed like he was ready. He started the season strong, scoring 7 goals in 10 matches. But then, during international duty, he injured his knee and was sidelined for 5 months. Van Persie returned to the pitch twice during his injury-plagued season, but every time he stepped onto the field, disaster struck. Either his ankle or his knee gave out. It seemed impossible for him to stay fit. However, the following season brought a glimmer of hope. He suffered only 4 minor knocks and missed just 7 matches, a significant improvement compared to previous years. The result? An incredible 20 goals and 14 assists, including a spectacular goal against Liverpool. Van Persie led the league in assists and was named Arsenal's Player of the Season. But just as it seemed he had turned a corner, the cycle repeated itself. The next season started brilliantly, with 16 goal contributions in the first 14 matches. But then, during an international friendly, he suffered another injury that kept him out until April. By the time he returned, there were only 3 matches left in the season. At this point, Van Persie was approaching his 28th birthday, and doubts began to surface. Would he ever have a truly world-class season? Could he overcome his injury curse and fulfill his potential? Despite his injury, Van Persie made it to the 2010 World Cup with the Netherlands. Against all odds, he played a crucial role in helping his team advance from the group stage. In the semi-finals, he provided a decisive assist that secured their place in the final. Though the Netherlands lost to Spain, Van Persie's performances reminded the world of his talent. Back at Arsenal, Van Persie took on the iconic number 10 jersey, previously worn by Dennis Bergkamp. But his season started with yet another setback, an ankle injury before he could even score a goal. By New Year's, however, he was fully recovered, and what followed was nothing short of extraordinary. On January 1st, Van Persie scored his first goal of the season. At that point, Dimitar Berbatov led the goal-scoring charts with 13 goals, and Carlos Tevez was close behind with 11. But in just 7 matches, Van Persie netted 10 goals, catapulting himself into contention for the Golden Boot. True to his unpredictable nature, he suffered another injury and missed 2 matches. Yet, even with Arsenal struggling as a team, Van Persie returned and went on another stunning run, scoring 8 goals in 10 matches. He even broke Didier Drogba's record for scoring in the most consecutive away games. By the end of the season, Van Persie had tied Cristiano Ronaldo and Thierry Henry for the most goals scored in the second half of a Premier League season. Despite his heroics, he fell just 2 goals short of overtaking Berbatov and Tevez for the Golden Boot. Despite an incredible individual season, 26 goals and 6 assists in 25 matches across all competitions, Van Persie's Arsenal fell short in the UEFA Champions League, exiting in the round of 16. The loss to Barcelona was particularly bitter. Arsenal were leading when Van Persie was controversially sent off for kicking the ball just 1 second after the referee blew his whistle. It was a harsh decision, and many wondered what could have been if the game had played out differently. But that disappointment was overshadowed by what came next. At 28 years old, Van Persie finally had a season free from injuries, his first since arriving in the Premier League. With Cesc Fabregas leaving the club, Van Persie took on the captain's armband and carried Arsenal on his shoulders. In the first half of the season, he racked up 21 goals and 6 assists, earning a spot in the FIFA World Design for the first time in his career. But Arsenal's struggles as a team were evident. Tottenham seemed poised to secure the final Champions League spot, but Van Persie refused to let that happen. He led Arsenal to a crucial comeback win against their North London rivals, ensuring they finished just 1 point above Tottenham. One newspaper described Van Persie as a one-man band of the highest order. While he came within inches of breaking every goal-scoring record in sight, Arsenal's second highest scorer, Theo Walcott, managed just 8 goals. The team finished 19 points behind second place. But when it came to individual accolades, there was no doubt. Robin van Persie was the PFA Player of the Year. But this is where the story takes a dramatic turn. When Van Persie met with Arsenal's board to negotiate a new contract, he asked the same questions Fabregas had before leaving. Where is the club's ambition? What happened to the glory days of the early 2000s? What's the plan to compete for titles? The response was shocking. Instead of outlining a vision for success, the board showed him the club's profit margins. Net and gross figures that meant nothing to a player desperate to win. It became clear to Van Persie that the club's priorities no longer aligned with his own. As he later put it, "My relationship to Arsenal was like a marriage. After 8 years, we had grown apart. I was still ambitious. I still dreamed of winning the league title. But the club's ambitions were different. I had to move on." Van Persie's explanation for leaving Arsenal was both poetic and ironic. After 8 years, we had grown apart. We were tired of each other. I was still ambitious. I still dreamed of winning the league title. So, I began looking around. That's life. While his words resonated with many, they also carried a touch of irony, given his personal life was marred by infidelity. But let's move past that and focus on what came next. When Van Persie arrived at Manchester United, doubts swirled around his signing. Some questioned whether he and Wayne Rooney could coexist. Others argued that United should have prioritized strengthening their midfield, but Sir Alex Ferguson wasn't having any of it. Ferguson famously said, "When a player of that caliber shows up, you have to act. There's no time to think." And act he did. The moment Van Persie signed, Ferguson gathered his players in the locker room. According to Rio Ferdinand, the manager pointed to Paul Scholes, Michael Carrick, Shinji Kagawa, and Wayne Rooney and said, "I've got a new player. I'll show you how to get the ball to him. And if you can give him the ball like that, he will win us the league. If you can't, you will not play." Ferdinand later added, "I had never seen him talk about a player like that. Ronaldo was probably the only other one." The entire club believed in Van Persie's potential, and assistant coach René Moulenstein even convinced him to take the number 20 shirt, predicting he would lead United to their 20th league title. And that's exactly what happened. Van Persie's debut season at United was nothing short of legendary. It began at an absurd pace and only got better. His ability to deliver in clutch moments was unmatched, and his performances were decisive in securing the title. After scoring a decisive goal in his first start for Manchester United, Van Persie faced Southampton in his next match. By the hour mark, United were trailing 2-1, with Van Persie having netted their only goal. But the game took a frustrating turn as he missed several chances, including a penalty. The missed penalty visibly upset him, but what happened next defined his season. With about 10 minutes left, Van Persie began cramping severely. Most players would have asked to be substituted, but not him. He refused to leave the pitch. Then, in the 87th minute, he equalized, and in injury time, he completed his hat-trick, sealing a dramatic comeback win. But even after such a heroic performance, Van Persie walked into the dressing room with the match ball, gathered his teammates, and apologized for missing the penalty. The bratty, entitled young boy from his Feyenoord days was gone. This was a new Van Persie, a true professional with a killer instinct. A few matches later, Van Persie scored the winner against Liverpool. Over his next 3 games, he contributed 3 assists and a goal. Then, in back-to-back matches against Chelsea and Arsenal, he was the difference maker, scoring crucial goals in both games. By his 10th match, Van Persie's goals had already earned United 13 points. But he wasn't done. In his 11th match, he provided an assist in a narrow 3-2 win. After 2 quieter games, he went on another incredible run, scoring winning goals in 3 consecutive matches, including an injury-time winner against Manchester City. He didn't stop there. Over the next 5 matches, he added 5 goals and 2 assists, followed by opening goals against Tottenham and Liverpool. Van Persie was unstoppable, carrying United on his back and proving why Sir Alex Ferguson had so much faith in him. By the 23rd match of the season, Van Persie had already secured 24 points for Manchester United, with 24 goal contributions in 20 starts. Even after a dry spell caused by a freak injury, colliding with a TV camera and hurting his hip, United were already 11 points clear at the top of the table. The title race was effectively over, but Van Persie wasn't done yet. He returned before the season ended to deliver one of the most iconic performances of his career, a hat-trick against Aston Villa. His first goal sealed the Premier League title for United. His second goal, a stunning volley from outside the box, won the Goal of the Season award. And his third goal leapfrogged Luis Suarez to the top of the goal-scoring charts, securing the Golden Boot for Van Persie. Reflecting on the season, Van Persie said, "That whole season, I felt relaxed and confident. We went behind in 16 different games and still won by 11 points. The reason? Simple. Robin Van Persie was there." But, as always with Van Persie, there was no fairy tale ending. Sir Alex Ferguson's sudden retirement at the end of the season hit him hard. According to Rio Ferdinand, his retirement hurt Robin the most. Some even suggested Van Persie felt betrayed, having joined United specifically to play under Ferguson. Despite continuing to perform well, even scoring a memorable goal at the 2014 World Cup and helping the Netherlands secure a bronze medal, Van Persie's form declined under Louis van Gaal. He eventually moved to Fenerbahce, where he enjoyed a remarkable stint before returning to Feyenoord for a final victory lap. Even in his last months as a professional, he was still scoring hat-tricks, proving that when you're good, you're good. Robin Van Persie's journey is a reminder that even the greatest talents face challenges, but with resilience, they can achieve greatness. What's your favorite Van Persie moment? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives of football's greatest icons. Who should we cover next? Let's keep the conversation going. Hit the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest uploads. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.